I never thought the biggest mistake of my life would come from a room full of people in suits. But it did. The night was supposed to be a celebration. It was her company's annual holiday party, and I had been invited as her plus one. Milena, my fiancée, had been looking forward to it for weeks, telling me how important it was for me to be there, to show my support, and to network with her colleagues. I wasn't thrilled at the idea. Social events with corporate people never really felt like my thing, but I loved her, so I agreed to go. What I didn't know, what I couldn't have known, was that this night would unravel everything I thought I knew about her and about myself. I wasn't one of those guys who'd ever be described as a man of the world. My name is Jonas, and I work as a tech support specialist for a small startup. It's a decent job, one that pays the bills, but it's nothing like what Milena does. She's a high-flying executive, the kind of woman who walks into a room and makes people stop and listen. She works in finance, handling huge portfolios and making decisions that affect millions of dollars. She's ambitious, driven, and incredibly successful. Meanwhile, I spend my days fixing software glitches and troubleshooting servers. I don't mind it. It's a comfortable life, but it's nothing glamorous. But in my mind, it wasn't the jobs that made us different. It was how we fit together. Milena would sometimes joke about my small world, but it was always lighthearted. At least, I thought it was. She told me she admired my simplicity, how I didn't need the high-stakes drama of corporate life to feel validated. And I believed her. I thought that's what made us work, her ambition and my grounded nature. We balanced each other out. That night at the party, however, all of that would change. The venue was extravagant, the kind of place where the floor gleamed with marble and the walls seemed to whisper success. The chandeliers above cast a golden glow over everything, and the air was thick with expensive cologne and awkward pleasantries. The room was filled with people in sharp suits and perfectly tailored dresses, discussing quarterly projections and mergers with the enthusiasm of people who saw money as their lifeblood. To be honest, I felt completely out of place. Milena was in her element. She floated through the crowd with ease, exchanging pleasantries, laughing with her colleagues, and always having a conversation ready for anyone who approached her. I, on the other hand, found myself standing off to the side, nursing a drink and trying to make conversation with a few of her coworkers who didn't seem quite as high-strung. But I couldn't shake the feeling that I wasn't wanted there, at least not by anyone who mattered. Milena was the queen of this world, and I was just the guy she was dating. To them, I wasn't part of the picture. I was a bit of a mystery, someone who didn't fit into their meticulously ordered universe. And Milena, despite her insistence that she wanted me there, seemed to be enjoying the spotlight without much concern for me. She didn't really need me. Not in this world. As the night wore on, I noticed something strange. Every time she spoke about me, it was either dismissive or patronizing. She would refer to me as her chill boyfriend, the one who was okay with the simple life. At first, I thought she was just being playful, but the more I heard her say it, the more it stung. The breaking point came when I overheard her telling one of her senior colleagues about me. "Oh, Jonas, he's a tech guy? Doesn't really have any big career goals, just likes tinkering with computers. I'm not sure what he'll do in the future, but it's cute, right?" She laughed, the kind of laugh that wasn't really a laugh. It was the laugh of someone who was mocking something, someone. I froze. My blood ran cold. I was standing just a few feet away when I heard those words. She didn't know I was listening. She didn't know that I had heard her talk about me like I was some sort of pet project. A cute boyfriend who didn't have real aspirations. For a moment, I felt like everything around me went silent. The music, the laughter, the hum of conversations, it all disappeared. I was just standing there, processing what I had just heard, trying to understand how this woman, the woman I was supposed to marry, could speak about me that way. I turned around and walked away, needing air, needing space to think. My hands were shaking. I couldn't understand it. I thought I knew her, but now, in that moment, I realized I didn't. I found a quiet corner, trying to calm myself down. I wasn't going to confront her right there, not yet. But I needed time to think. How had things gotten this far? Was I really that naive to think that Milena, with her ambition and drive, would ever truly understand what I did? Minutes passed, but it felt like hours. I could hear her voice faintly from the other side of the room, laughing with her colleagues. They all seemed so perfect, so far removed from the world I lived in. I glanced at my phone. No text from Milena. No sign that she cared where I was. That's when I realized I was a ghost in her world. When she finally found me, I wasn't surprised. She was the kind of person who always found a way to be in control. She walked up, and I could see the fake smile plastered on her face, the one she used when she was about to say something condescending but wanted to soften the blow. "Hey, Jonas," she said, her voice too sweet. "What's going on? You look like you've seen a ghost." "I heard what you said about me," I replied, my voice steady but cold. Her smile faltered, just for a second. "What are you talking about?" "You know exactly what I'm talking about." I stood up, facing her now. The cute little boyfriend who's just happy with a simple life, with no big career goals. "Is that how you really see me, Milena?" Her eyes widened, and for the first time that night, I saw something close to panic flash across her face. "But I wasn't done. I've been nothing but supportive of you. And this is how you talk about me when you think I'm not around." My voice rose, and I could feel the anger bubbling inside me. I deserve better than this. And so do you. You don't need me in your life anymore, and I don't need you in mine. She opened her mouth, but nothing came out. "Goodbye, Milena," I said, my voice final. "Our engagement is over." I could feel the weight of the silence between us. Milena's expression went from confusion to disbelief, and then to something else, a mix of anger and shame. I could tell she didn't expect this from me. She'd probably assumed that I would quietly let it slide, just like I always did. But tonight, something had shifted inside me. I was tired of being invisible in her world. "Jonas, wait," she started, her voice shaky. "You're overreacting." It wasn't like that. I shook my head, my hands trembling slightly, but I wasn't about to back down now. "No, Milena, you don't get it. You've been belittling me for months, maybe longer. You think I don't notice, but I do. I heard everything tonight." She reached out to grab my arm, but I pulled away. "Please, don't. Just don't touch me." She was looking around now, like she didn't know what to do, maybe realizing that she was starting to lose control. The room felt cold suddenly, and it wasn't just the temperature. People were starting to notice us, some of her colleagues glancing over with curious eyes. But none of them came over to ask if we were okay. None of them cared. They were all part of her world, and I had never truly been a part of it. "I don't understand," she said, her voice quieter now. "Why are you making this such a big deal?" "Because it is a big deal, Milena," I spat out, surprising myself with the force of my words. "I'm not some accessory to your success. I'm not here just to make you look good when you need someone to lean on. I have my own life, my own work, and you've been making me feel like I don't matter." The look on her face was hard to read. Confusion, guilt, frustration, all mixed together. For a moment, I thought maybe she'd finally get it. But then she spoke again, her tone cold, distant. "Fine," she said, crossing her arms over her chest. "If you think that's what I was doing, maybe we do need a break. Maybe you're right. Maybe we're just too different." It was like a slap to the face. I had just told her how deeply hurt I was, and this was her response. The indifference in her voice hit harder than anything she had said to me all night. "You know what? If you feel that way, then maybe it's better that we end it now." I stood there, feeling my heart pounding in my chest. This wasn't a dramatic breakup. It wasn't some big, tearful confession. It was just her, standing there, so casual, so willing to throw it all away. Like it meant nothing. I didn't even know what to say. Part of me wanted to scream, to demand answers. But the other part of me, the part that had been quietly pushing all my feelings aside for so long, knew this was the moment to walk away. This was the moment I realized I didn't need her. I deserved better than this. I could hear her voice calling after me as I walked away, but I didn't turn around. I didn't need to hear any more empty apologies. The moment I stepped out of that ballroom, I knew things would never be the same. The cold air hit me the moment I stepped outside. It was a relief, really, the stark contrast to the suffocating warmth of the ballroom. I didn't know where I was going. I just needed to get away. My legs carried me without thinking, my mind a whirlwind of confusion, anger, and hurt. I kept replaying the scene in my head, the words she said, the look in her eyes. How could she just brush me off like that? It wasn't until I reached the sidewalk that I realized how far I had walked. I didn't care. I just needed to breathe. The coolness of the night was comforting, grounding me in a way the party never had. People were still milling about outside the venue, chatting and laughing, but none of it reached me. My thoughts were too loud, too overwhelming. I pulled out my phone and stared at it. There were no messages from Milena. Not a single one. I had left in a hurry, but surely she would reach out by now, wouldn't she? We had been together for 2 years, and in all that time, we had never had an argument this serious. She couldn't possibly think it was just a minor thing, right? I decided to wait, leaning against the cool brick of a nearby building. I didn't want to go back, not yet. But I also didn't want to leave things unresolved. I tried to convince myself that maybe I was overreacting, that I should call her, talk things through. But something deep inside me told me that this wasn't just an argument. It was the culmination of months of tension, of me ignoring things that had bothered me because I was too afraid to face the truth. Half an hour passed, and I still hadn't heard from her. No calls, no texts, nothing. I couldn't help but feel a sense of finality in that. She wasn't going to chase me. She wasn't going to apologize. She had made her choice. I don't know what exactly changed in me in that moment, but I felt a strange sense of clarity. I had spent so long trying to make this relationship work, bending over backwards to accommodate her world, her career, her life. I had always been the supportive partner, the one who stayed quiet in the background, never demanding anything for myself. But in that moment, I realized I couldn't do it anymore. I couldn't keep sacrificing my self-respect just to make her happy. I stood up straighter, my mind made up. It wasn't just about the party or the words she had said. It was about everything. The way she looked at me sometimes, like I was a project she was trying to fix. The way she always assumed that I would be fine with her taking the lead, with her making all the decisions. I wasn't just her sidekick. I was her partner. Or at least, I thought I was. I pulled out my phone again, this time with a different intention. I opened the contact list, scrolling until I found her name. My fingers hovered over the screen, but for a moment, I hesitated. What was I supposed to say? I couldn't go back and pretend everything was fine. I couldn't just sweep this under the rug. Finally, I typed the words, "I'm done." It wasn't much, but it was all I could muster at the moment. My finger hovered over the send button for what felt like an eternity. But then I pressed it, and that was it. I sat there for a few minutes, the reality of what I had just done settling in. I hadn't expected it to feel like this, like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders, like I could breathe for the first time in years. But at the same time, I felt empty. I had just ended my engagement. The life I thought I was going to have was now shattered, and there was no going back. Minutes later, my phone buzzed in my hand. A text from Milena. "Where are you? Why did you leave? We need to talk. This is ridiculous." I stared at the message, my heart sinking. She still didn't get it. She still didn't understand why I had left. I felt a pang of guilt, but it was quickly overshadowed by a sense of relief. This was the end. There was no point in talking anymore. She had already made her position clear. I had heard everything I needed to hear. I didn't reply. I couldn't. The next morning, I woke up with a strange sense of emptiness. The events from the night before were still fresh in my mind, but they didn't feel real. I had ended my engagement, and yet I felt like I was still waiting for Milena to come through the door and pretend everything was fine. But she didn't. There was no knock, no phone call, no message. It was eerily quiet, and it stung. I had expected something. Maybe a text, a call, even a rant. Something to try and explain herself. But the silence was deafening. I went about my morning routine in a daze, barely registering the movements. I brewed my coffee, stared at the empty space where her toothbrush had once been, and tried to focus on anything other than the hole she had left in my life. I felt a strange sense of freedom, but also a gnawing sadness. Was I really ready to walk away? Was this the right decision? I couldn't shake the feeling that I was missing something, that maybe I was overreacting. But then, I remembered the look on her face when I walked out of that ballroom. I remembered the way she had brushed me off, like I was a footnote in her life. And it all came rushing back. By noon, I finally decided to check my phone. I had been avoiding it all morning, afraid of what I might see. But when I opened it, I saw something that made my stomach drop, an unread message from Milena. "We need to talk. You're making a huge mistake." I stared at the words, my mind racing. She didn't get it. She didn't understand why I left, why I was done. It was always about her world, her expectations. She had never seen me as an equal. She had always seen me as someone to tolerate, not someone to respect. I wanted to ignore her. I wanted to leave it at that. But I couldn't. My fingers moved on their own, typing out a quick response. "No, Milena. I'm done. I can't do this anymore." It wasn't much, but it was the truth. I had said everything I needed to say. I hit send, and for a moment, I felt like I had taken control back. But as soon as I put my phone down, I felt the weight of what I had done. Would she come to my apartment, demanding answers? Would she try to convince me I was wrong? I wasn't sure, but I knew one thing for certain. This was going to change everything. The afternoon dragged on in a haze of uncertainty. I spent the rest of the day pacing around my apartment, trying to distract myself, but every time I looked at my phone, there was no new message from Milena. I didn't know what I was expecting. Maybe a dramatic outburst, maybe an apology. Anything to make this feel real. But nothing. Around 6 that evening, as the sky started to darken, I heard a knock on the door. My heart skipped a beat, and I rushed to answer it. There she was, standing in the hallway, dressed in a coat and boots, her face set in that same determined expression I had seen countless times when she was about to take control of a situation. "Can we talk?" she asked, her voice calm, but I could hear the underlying tension in it. She wasn't here to apologize. She wasn't here to beg me to come back. She was here because she still thought she could fix this, because she always thought she could fix everything. I stared at her for a moment, weighing my options. Part of me wanted to slam the door in her face. After all, she hadn't even attempted to reach out until hours after I left. But I wasn't that person anymore. I wasn't going to run away. So, I stepped aside, letting her in. She entered slowly, like she was still trying to figure out the situation, trying to gauge how I felt. But I wasn't going to make it easy for her. "I don't know what you want from me, Milena," I said, crossing my arms. "You've had all this time to understand what happened last night, and yet here you are, acting like it's nothing. You don't even get it, do you?" Her eyes flickered with something like annoyance, but she didn't interrupt. "I get that you're angry," she began, but I cut her off. "Angry? This isn't about anger. It's about respect, something you seem to have forgotten existed in this relationship. I'm not some joke for you to laugh at with your colleagues. You made me feel insignificant, and you didn't even have the decency to care enough to apologize until now." Her face tightened, and for the first time, I saw something close to vulnerability in her eyes. But it didn't last. She took a deep breath and stood up straighter. "Jonas," she said, her voice suddenly soft, almost pleading, "you have to understand, my world is different from yours. I live in a high-stakes environment, where everything I do is under scrutiny. People are constantly evaluating me, my decisions, my image, my relationships. It's a lot of pressure, and sometimes, I deal with it by deflecting. I didn't mean to hurt you." I laughed, but it was a bitter sound. "You think I don't understand pressure? I may not be living your high-powered life, but I work hard too. I've been there for you through every project, every deal, every late night. But you never once stopped to ask how I felt. You've been so focused on your own success that you forgot I had a life, a job, and dreams of my own. Did you ever think about what it was like for me? To stand in the background, always supporting you, but never really seen?" She was quiet for a moment, her eyes scanning my face, like she was finally starting to see me as more than a supporting character in her life. But it wasn't enough. Not anymore. "I'm not asking for sympathy, Milena. I'm asking for respect. And I've been asking for it for a long time. But it's clear now, you're not willing to give it to me." Her expression faltered, and for a second, I saw the old Milena, the one who cared, the one who knew how to make things right. But it was too late. Too much had already happened. "You don't understand," she said softly, but there was no conviction in her voice anymore. "I didn't know how to balance everything. I didn't know how to make you feel important when my whole life is about making sure everyone else sees me as important." "Maybe that's the problem," I said, my voice quiet now. "You've been so obsessed with how everyone sees you. You forgot how to see me at all. And that's why I'm done." She opened her mouth to speak, but the words didn't come. She just stood there, her shoulders slumped, eyes looking everywhere but at me. She was defeated, but it wasn't just because I had left her. It was because she realized that I was no longer the person she could control, the person who would always be there for her, no matter what. I took a deep breath, my heart pounding in my chest, but there was no turning back now. I had already made my decision. "Goodbye, Milena." I turned and walked away, leaving her standing there in the silence, the weight of everything we'd been through settling between us. The door closed behind me with a soft click, and I leaned against it, breathing heavily. The finality of it all hit me like a ton of bricks. Milena was gone, and for the first time in a long while, I felt an overwhelming sense of peace. The chaos of our relationship, the confusion, the self-doubt, suddenly, it was all gone. But that didn't make things easy. I spent the next few hours in a daze, my mind spinning with what had just happened. I couldn't understand how it had gotten to this point. I had spent so much time trying to make it work, trying to be the person Milena needed, trying to be the supportive boyfriend. But in the end, it wasn't enough. And maybe that was the hardest part to accept, knowing that no matter how much I gave, she would never truly see me for who I was. Around midnight, my phone buzzed on the coffee table. I picked it up, expecting it to be a message from her, but instead, it was from my best friend, Ben. "You good, man? Haven't heard from you all day." I stared at the message for a while. Ben had been my sounding board for years. He knew about Milena, about everything we'd been through. I didn't even know what to say to him. How could I explain everything that had happened in one text? I typed out a quick response. "We broke up. It's over." Within seconds, my phone rang. I picked it up, not even needing to look at the caller ID to know it was Ben. "Jonas, what the hell happened?" he asked, his voice full of concern. "You guys were solid. You were engaged. What went down?" I exhaled, running a hand through my hair. I couldn't do it anymore, Ben. She was always too focused on her career, too obsessed with what other people thought. I felt like I was invisible to her. There was a long pause on the other end. "Man, that sucks. But I get it. You've been unhappy for a while now, haven't you?" I nodded, even though he couldn't see me. "Yeah, I just didn't want to admit it. I kept telling myself I could handle it, that things would get better. But last night, after everything she said, it hit me. I'm not some sidekick in her life. I'm not her accessory." "You did the right thing," Ben said, his voice firm. "You deserve someone who values you, Jonas. Not someone who makes you feel small." I let out a sigh, the weight of his words sinking in. "I know, but that doesn't make this easier. It still hurts, you know? I loved her." "Yeah, man. I can't imagine how hard that must be. But trust me, you'll come out of this stronger. You'll see." I didn't reply right away. My mind was still spinning, the loneliness creeping in. But Ben was right. This was the right choice. As much as it hurt, I had to let go. For my own peace. "Thanks, Ben. I appreciate it." "No problem. You're not alone in this, all right? I'm here. We'll figure it out." The call ended, and I was left alone with my thoughts again. I stared at the phone for a while, thinking about how much my life had just shifted in one night. The girl I thought I was going to marry was now a stranger to me, and I couldn't help but wonder if I had been living in some kind of dream all along. The days that followed felt like a blur. Each morning I woke up expecting things to feel normal, but they didn't. The apartment was quieter than I remembered, emptier, even though Milena hadn't lived there for weeks. It was like the space itself was grieving the loss of what had once been. I spent my days staring at the walls, picking up old habits, but nothing felt the same. I tried to keep busy, working, calling clients, but every task seemed distant, like I was operating on autopilot. The hardest part was the constant reminders of Milena. The pictures we had taken, the texts, the little things she had left behind. The air smelled like her perfume for days after she was gone. I didn't reach out to her. Not once. And she didn't contact me either. At first, I thought maybe she'd send a message or show up at my door, desperate to fix things. But after a week of silence, I realized something. She wasn't going to. I had walked away, and she had let me. That's when it hit me. This was how she had always been. She wasn't just dismissive of me when things were good. She was dismissive of everything that didn't fit into her world. And somehow, I had convinced myself that it would get better. I had hoped that if I kept supporting her, if I kept giving more of myself, eventually she would see me. But she never did. She had never really seen me at all. One night, after finishing up a project, I was scrolling through old messages on my phone. I came across one from her, sent about a month before we broke up. She had texted me, "I'm so proud of you, Jonas. You're doing amazing. Just keep doing what you do, and we'll be fine." I read it over and over, wondering if that was what she truly believed, if she was proud of me, or just saying the words because they were expected. I closed my eyes and leaned back in the chair, rubbing my temples. I had always tried to be the person she wanted me to be, but somewhere along the way, I had lost myself in the process. And now, sitting in the empty apartment, I finally saw that the person I had been trying to please wasn't even the same person I had fallen in love with. I wasn't sure how long I sat there, But when I opened my eyes, I felt different. Not completely healed, but a little more whole. A little more myself. The next day, I did something I hadn't done in months. I went out to see my friends. Ben had been calling me for weeks, and I had avoided him, not wanting to talk about Milena, not wanting to admit how broken I felt. But now, I needed to see someone who reminded me that there was life outside of that relationship. I met Ben at a bar downtown. He was sitting at a corner table, sipping a beer. When he saw me, he grinned. "Hey, look who decided to show up," he said, raising his glass. I smiled and sat down, immediately feeling the weight of the last few weeks lift off my shoulders. "How's it been?" he asked after a pause. I took a deep breath. "Better, actually. Not great, but better." "Good to hear. So, have you thought about what you want to do next?" I looked at him, realizing that this was the first time I was really thinking about it. What did I want? What was I supposed to do now that I wasn't in Milena's shadow anymore? "I think I need to focus on myself," I said slowly. "I've spent so much time living in someone else's world, trying to fit into her life. But I haven't done anything for me in a long time." Ben nodded, as if he had expected that answer. "I get it. It's time you started living for you, man. You deserve that." I sat back in my chair, taking a long drink from my glass. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't thinking about what Milena was doing or if she regretted what happened. I wasn't thinking about how I could make her understand or wish things had gone differently. I was just thinking about me. Weeks passed since that night with Ben, and slowly, things started to fall into place. I took more time for myself, something I had forgotten how to do during my relationship with Milena. I spent evenings painting, something I hadn't done in years. I picked up new hobbies, started exercising again, and reconnected with old friends. Most importantly, I began to find joy in my own company again. One Saturday, I went to a local cafe I had always loved but hadn't visited in a while. As I sat down with my coffee, I noticed how peaceful it felt. There were no expectations, no pressures. Just me, the quiet hum of conversation, and the sound of the coffee machine in the background. And then it happened. As I was scrolling through my phone, my thumb hesitated over a notification. It was from Milena. "Jonas, I've been thinking a lot. I'm sorry. I should have never treated you the way I did. I've learned a lot about myself since everything ended. I hope you're doing well." For a moment, I stared at the message, my heart thudding in my chest. I had imagined this moment 100 times, the one where Milena finally came to her senses and apologized. But this time, it didn't feel like a triumph. It didn't feel like the closure I was looking for. Instead, it felt like a distant echo of something that was no longer my reality. I took a deep breath, reading the message again. "I'm doing better, Milena. I'm focusing on myself, and I'm at peace. I hope you find what you're looking for, too." I put the phone down and smiled. The old Jonas would have agonized over the message, would have wondered if he had made the right decision. But not anymore. I had learned that it wasn't about fixing the past. It was about embracing the future. As the days went by, I started to notice little things, like how the weight of Milena's absence no longer felt like a heavy stone in my chest. I could walk into a room without wondering what she would think. I could make decisions without considering how they might affect her. It was liberating. One afternoon, I ran into an old acquaintance while out for a walk. Her name was Lucy. We had met years ago at a mutual friend's party, but we'd never really kept in touch. We spent a few minutes chatting, and I found myself genuinely enjoying the conversation. There was something easy about being around someone who didn't have all the expectations Milena had once placed on me. It was refreshing. As we exchanged numbers and agreed to grab coffee sometime, I realized something. I wasn't looking for another relationship to fixate on. I wasn't trying to replace what I had lost. I was simply open to whatever the future had in store. That night, as I sat down with a book in my hands and a sense of calm settling over me, I thought about how far I had come. The Jonas I was before Milena, the man who lost himself in a relationship, who let someone else define his worth, was gone. In his place was someone who was learning to appreciate the small, beautiful moments of life. For the first time in a long time, I felt free. And that freedom felt like a new beginning. A beginning that was all mine.